Welcome to another gentle exploration of the mysteries that surround us. I'm your host, and tonight we're venturing into a question that sits at the very edge of what we think we know about reality. Before we begin, find a comfortable position, let your breathing settle, and prepare to journey with me through one of the most fascinating intersections of modern science and ancient wonder. Here's something that might surprise you. Right now, as you listen to these words, particles deep within your body may be instantaneously connected to particles on the other side of the universe. Not through any force we can see or touch, but through something Albert Einstein once called spooky action at a distance. This phenomenon, known as quantum entanglement, suggests that separation itself might be an illusion. And if that's true, what might it mean for the ancient human intuition that we're all more connected than we realize? Tonight, we're exploring the bridge between quantum entanglement and the growing movements around manifestation and the law of attraction. We'll examine what science actually tells us about the fundamental interconnectedness of reality, where the evidence leads us, and where speculation begins. This isn't about making grand claims or selling easy answers. Instead, it's an invitation to sit with some profound questions about the nature of consciousness, connection, and what it might mean to be human in a quantum universe. So settle in, let your curiosity guide you, and let's begin this contemplative journey into one of the most intriguing questions of our time. Could we be more connected than we realize? To understand where we're going, we need to start with one of the most revolutionary discoveries in the history of science. In the early 20th century, physicists began peering into the subatomic world and discovered something that defied everything they thought they knew about reality. Matter, at its most fundamental level, didn't behave like the solid, predictable objects we experience in our daily lives. Instead, it existed in a realm of probability, uncertainty, and what seemed like impossible connections. Quantum entanglement emerged from this strange new landscape, like a riddle wrapped in mathematics. When two particles become entangled, measuring the state of one particle instantly determines the state of its partner, regardless of the distance between them. This isn't about information travelling faster than light, which would violate the laws of physics as we understand them. It's something far more mysterious. The particles seem to share a single, unified existence that transcends space and time. Einstein famously struggled with this concept, spending years trying to prove that quantum mechanics must be incomplete. He believed in what physicists call local realism, the idea that objects have definite properties independent of observation, and that nothing can influence something else faster than light can travel between them. The implications of quantum entanglement troubled him so deeply that he devoted much of his later career to finding what he was certain must be missing pieces of the puzzle. But experiment after experiment has confirmed what the mathematics predicted. In 2022, 3 physicists won the Nobel Prize for definitively proving that quantum entanglement is real. Alain Aspect, John Clauser, and Anton Zeilinger conducted experiments so elegant and conclusive that they closed what physicists call loopholes in previous tests. Their work didn't just confirm entanglement, it opened entirely new fields of quantum information science and quantum computing. What makes these discoveries so profound is that they force us to reconsider our most basic assumptions about reality. If particles can be connected in ways that transcend space and time, what does that mean for our understanding of separation, individuality, and the nature of existence itself? As you reflect on this, notice how it feels to consider that the atoms in your body might be connected to particles scattered across the cosmos. There's no need to draw conclusions yet. Simply hold this possibility and let it settle into your awareness as we continue our exploration. Recent discoveries have pushed the boundaries of quantum entanglement even further into the realm of the extraordinary. In 2023, researchers at CERN, the world's largest particle physics laboratory, detected quantum entanglement between some of the most massive particles known to science, top quarks. These discoveries weren't made in the sterile environment of a carefully controlled laboratory, but in the chaotic, high-energy collisions of the Large Hadron Collider. What makes this particularly fascinating is that top quarks are incredibly heavy and short-lived. They decay almost immediately after being created, transferring their quantum properties to other particles in ways that preserve the entanglement. This suggests that the phenomenon isn't limited to the delicate, isolated conditions that scientists typically associate with quantum effects. It's happening in the most violent, energetic processes in the universe. Even more remarkable, researchers have discovered that the fundamental building blocks of protons, quarks and gluons, exist in a state of maximum entanglement. This means that every proton in your body, in the air around you, in the stars above, contains particles that are as deeply connected as quantum mechanics allows. The implications are staggering. The very matter that makes up your physical form is woven together by quantum connections that exist on scales smaller than we can directly observe. Scientists at the Technion Institute in Israel announced in recent years the discovery of a new form of quantum entanglement that hadn't been observed in over 2 decades. This discovery involves the total angular momentum of photons confined in nanoscale structures, potentially opening new pathways for quantum communication technologies. Each new discovery seems to reveal that entanglement is not an exotic curiosity, but a fundamental feature of reality that operates at every scale we can measure. Perhaps most intriguingly, artificial intelligence has begun to reveal new ways that entanglement can emerge. A system called Pytheas, designed to optimize quantum protocols, surprised its creators by discovering a simpler method for creating entanglement between distant particles. The AI found pathways that human physicists had overlooked, suggesting that nature's quantum connectivity might be even more fundamental and accessible than we imagined. Take a moment to breathe with this information. Consider that, as you sit here, listening to these words, the particles that make up your body are participating in quantum relationships that span distances we can barely comprehend. This isn't metaphor or speculation, it's the leading edge of experimental physics. Here's where our journey takes a fascinating turn. For decades, quantum entanglement remained confined to physics laboratories, existing only in carefully isolated systems at temperatures approaching absolute zero. The consensus was clear. Quantum effects were too delicate to survive in the warm, noisy, complex environment of living systems. But recent discoveries have begun to challenge this assumption in remarkable ways. Researchers studying bird migration have found evidence that quantum entanglement might play a role in how robins and other migratory birds navigate across thousands of miles with extraordinary precision. The hypothesis centers on proteins in their eyes called cryptochromes, which may contain pairs of entangled electrons. When light hits these proteins, it could create quantum states that are sensitive to Earth's magnetic field, giving the birds an internal compass that operates on quantum principles. This isn't definitively proven yet. The science is still emerging and actively debated, but the mere possibility that evolution has found ways to harness quantum mechanics in biological systems opens extraordinary questions. If quantum entanglement can survive in the complex environment of a living bird's eye, what other biological processes might be operating according to quantum principles? Photosynthesis, the process by which plants convert sunlight into energy, appears to involve quantum coherence effects that help energy find the most efficient pathways through molecular structures. Some researchers suggest that quantum effects might even play a role in our sense of smell, with molecules' vibrational frequencies creating quantum tunneling effects in our nasal receptors. These discoveries hint at something profound. The boundary between the quantum world and the biological world may be far more porous than we ever imagined. Life doesn't just exist as a byproduct of quantum mechanics. It may have evolved within a universe governed by them. As you process this information, notice what it stirs in your own experience. Have you ever felt guided by intuition you couldn't explain? Have you experienced synchronicities that seem too meaningful to be mere coincidence? While we're not suggesting that quantum mechanics explains these experiences, we can hold space for the possibility that life operates according to principles that science is still discovering. This brings us to one of the most controversial and fascinating questions in modern science. What is consciousness, and how does it relate to the quantum nature of reality? This is where our exploration moves from established science into the realm of hypothesis, speculation, and profound mystery. Some researchers have proposed that consciousness itself might be a quantum phenomenon. The most famous of these theories comes from mathematician Roger Penrose, who won the Nobel Prize in Physics in 2020, and anesthesiologist Stuart Hameroff. Their theory suggests that consciousness arises from quantum processes occurring in microscopic structures within our brain cells called microtubules. According to this speculative framework, these microtubules might support quantum coherence and entanglement effects that somehow give rise to the unified field of awareness we experience as consciousness. The theory proposes that each collapse of quantum superposition creates a moment of proto-consciousness, and these moments somehow weave together into the continuous stream of awareness we know as our inner experience. It's important to note that this remains highly controversial and unproven. Most neuroscientists are skeptical, pointing out that the brain is a warm, wet, noisy environment that seems hostile to the delicate quantum effects that Penrose and Hameroff propose. The mainstream view is that consciousness emerges from the complex interactions of neurons according to classical physics, without requiring any quantum mechanics. But other researchers have proposed different models. Dr. Dirk Meyer from the University of Groningen suggests that consciousness might exist as a field surrounding the brain, operating in higher dimensions we can't directly perceive. These ideas venture far beyond current scientific consensus, existing more as fascinating possibilities than established facts. What makes these questions so compelling is not whether any particular theory is correct, but what they reveal about the profound mystery of consciousness itself. Despite all our scientific advances, we still have no complete understanding of how subjective experience arises from objective matter. Whether that matter follows classical or quantum laws, take a breath and notice your own consciousness as you listen to these words. You have direct, immediate access to the very phenomenon that science struggles to explain. This awareness you're experiencing right now, this capacity to know that you know, remains one of the deepest mysteries in all of science. One of the most intriguing aspects of quantum mechanics is something called the observer effect. In the quantum realm, the very act of measurement appears to influence the outcome of what's being measured. This doesn't mean that conscious observation creates reality, but rather that information extraction from quantum systems fundamentally changes their behavior. When physicists measure a quantum particle, they're not simply revealing pre-existing properties like checking the color of a hidden marble. Instead, the measurement process itself seems to cause the particle to choose specific properties from a range of possibilities. This is what physicists mean when they talk about wave function collapse, the transition from quantum possibilities to classical actualities. Some interpretations of quantum mechanics suggest that consciousness plays a special role in this process, though this remains highly speculative and controversial. The physicist Eugene Wigner proposed that consciousness might be what causes wave function collapse, but most physicists today favour interpretations that don't require any special role for conscious observers. This is where we encounter one of the most significant bridges between quantum physics and manifestation philosophy. Many manifestation teachings suggest that consciousness and intention can directly influence physical reality through quantum mechanical processes. These ideas often invoke the observer effect as evidence that our thoughts and feelings can literally shape the world around us. However, it's crucial to understand that this represents a significant leap beyond what quantum mechanics actually demonstrates. The observer effect operates at microscopic scales under highly controlled laboratory conditions. There's no scientific evidence that conscious intention can directly influence quantum events at the scales and in the environments where manifestation claims typically operate. This doesn't mean we should dismiss the profound questions these ideas raise. The relationship between consciousness and physical reality remains one of the deepest mysteries in science. But intellectual honesty requires us to distinguish between what we know, what we suspect, and what we hope might be true. As you sit with these ideas, notice what arises in your own experience. Can you sense the mystery of your own consciousness interacting with the physical world? There's something profound happening in this very moment as awareness meets information, but the precise nature of that interaction remains beautifully uncertain. The journey we're taking together doesn't require us to solve these mysteries or choose sides in scientific debates. Instead, it invites us to remain open to wonder while staying grounded in intellectual humility. In our next exploration, we'll examine what happens when quantum mechanics meets the deeply human longing for connection and meaning, but for now, simply rest in the questions themselves. Sometimes the most profound insights come not from answers, but from learning to be comfortable with not knowing, while remaining exquisitely attentive to the mystery of what is. There's something profound happening in the space between minds that science is only beginning to understand. When researchers place two strangers in separate rooms and monitor their brain activity, something remarkable occurs. As one person experiences an emotion or forms a thought, corresponding patterns sometimes appear in the other person's neural activity, despite having no conscious communication between them. This phenomenon, studied through a technique called hyperscanning, reveals that human brains may be far more interconnected than we typically imagine. Scientists have observed synchronized brainwaves between mothers and infants, between romantic partners, and even between people who have just met. While the mechanisms remain mysterious, the data suggests that consciousness might not be as isolated and individual as we commonly assume. Some researchers have proposed that these connections operate through what biologist Rupert Sheldrake calls morphic fields, though this remains highly speculative and exists outside mainstream scientific consensus. The idea suggests that patterns of information and behavior create invisible fields that can influence similar patterns across space and time. While controversial and unproven, these concepts invite us to consider whether connection might be a fundamental feature of reality rather than something we must create through effort. Neuroscientist Dan Siegel describes how human brains are literally shaped by social interaction throughout our lives. Our neural networks form, strengthen, and reorganize based on our relationships and connections with others. In this sense, the boundary between self and other becomes beautifully blurred at the level of brain structure itself. We are, quite literally, neural networks within networks, minds within minds. Consider your own experience as you listen to these words. Right now, patterns of thought and meaning are somehow transferring from one consciousness to another across space and time. The ideas forming in your awareness originated in mine, yet they're becoming uniquely yours through the mysterious process of understanding. This everyday miracle of communication hints at connections that operate beyond our ordinary concepts of separation. Take a moment to breathe with this possibility. Notice how it feels to consider that your consciousness might be more permeable, more interconnected than you typically imagine. There's no need to believe anything specific. Just allow yourself to rest in the wonder of not knowing exactly where you end and the rest of existence begins. This brings us to the heart of our exploration, the growing movement around manifestation and the law of attraction. Millions of people around the world report experiences of seeming to attract desired outcomes through focused intention, visualization, and emotional alignment. While these practices often lack rigorous scientific validation, they point to something deeply human about our relationship with possibility and change. The manifestation movement suggests that consciousness and intention can directly influence physical reality, often invoking quantum mechanics as a scientific foundation for these claims. Proponents argue that thoughts create electrical signals, while emotions generate magnetic fields, and that coherent combinations of thought and feeling can influence the quantum field in ways that manifest desired outcomes. However, it's crucial to understand that this represents a significant leap beyond what quantum physics actually demonstrates. No scientific evidence supports the claim that human thoughts or emotions can directly collapse wave functions, create entanglement, or influence quantum events at macroscopic scales. The quantum effects observed in laboratories operate under highly controlled conditions that don't exist in our daily lives. This doesn't mean we should dismiss the profound experiences people report around manifestation practices. Something meaningful is clearly happening, even if the mechanisms aren't what popular teachings suggest. Psychology offers compelling explanations. Focused intention increases awareness of relevant opportunities. Positive emotional states enhance creativity and social connection, and clear goals naturally orient behavior toward desired outcomes. What's particularly interesting is how manifestation practices often cultivate states of consciousness that research associates with well-being and effectiveness, present moment awareness, emotional regulation, clear intention setting, and gratitude. These are precisely the mental qualities that contemplative traditions have cultivated for thousands of years, long before anyone had heard of quantum mechanics. Perhaps the real power of manifestation isn't in manipulating external reality through quantum effects, but in transforming internal reality through attention and intention. When we change how we relate to our experience, we inevitably change our experience itself. This is profound enough without requiring any appeals to speculative physics. As you reflect on your own relationship with intention and manifestation, Notice what feels authentic to your experience. Have you observed correlations between your internal state and external circumstances? While causation remains unproven, the patterns you notice in your own life remain valid as subjective experience, worthy of attention and curiosity. If we step back from specific claims about manifestation and quantum mechanics, we find ourselves confronting a deeper question. What if interconnection itself is more fundamental than separation? This possibility emerges not just from quantum physics, but from multiple streams of scientific inquiry that are revealing the profound interdependence of all systems. Ecology shows us that no organism exists in isolation. Every living being participates in vast webs of relationship that extend across species, ecosystems, and the entire biosphere. The oxygen you breathe was produced by plants and algae. The carbon in your body was forged in the hearts of ancient stars. The bacteria in your gut are essential for your health and may even influence your mood and decision-making. Systems theory reveals similar patterns of interconnection in everything from weather systems to economies to social movements. Small changes in one part of a complex system can cascade into large effects elsewhere, a phenomenon known as sensitive dependence on initial conditions. The famous butterfly effect suggests that the beating of a butterfly's wings in Brazil might theoretically influence weather patterns in Texas weeks later. Quantum field theory, the mathematical framework underlying modern physics, describes reality as composed not of separate particles, but of interconnected fields that fill all of space. Every particle is understood as an excitation in its corresponding field, and these fields interact and influence each other across all distances. In this view, separation is a useful approximation for practical purposes, but interconnection is the deeper truth. Even our human nervous systems appear designed for connection. When someone smiles at you, mirror neurons in your brain fire as if you were smiling yourself. When you witness someone in pain, your own pain centers activate. Neuroscientist Marco Iacoboni suggests that these mirror neuron systems create a kind of neural Wi-Fi that allows us to directly experience aspects of others' inner states. The emerging field of social neuroscience reveals that our brains are fundamentally social organs, constantly predicting and responding to social information, even when we're alone. Loneliness activates the same pain pathways as physical injury, while social connection triggers reward systems associated with food and other survival needs. Take a breath and let these ideas settle. Notice how it feels to consider that interconnection might be more fundamental than separation, not just as a philosophical idea, but as a description of how reality actually operates at multiple levels of organization. This perspective on fundamental interconnection opens fascinating questions about the nature of consciousness itself. If everything is interconnected at quantum, biological, and social levels, what might this mean for our understanding of awareness, identity, and the boundaries of self? Some interpretations of quantum mechanics suggest that consciousness might not be localized within individual brains, but could be a more distributed property of complex systems. This remains highly speculative and lacks scientific consensus, but it's worth exploring as a thought experiment. What if consciousness is less like a spotlight contained within your skull and more like a field that emerges from patterns of information and relationship? This possibility resonates with contemplative traditions from around the world that describe awakening as the recognition that individual consciousness is part of a larger, unified awareness. Whether this points to metaphysical truth or represents a profound shift in subjective experience, such descriptions consistently appear across cultures and centuries. Neuroscientist Christoph Koch, initially skeptical of theories connecting consciousness to quantum effects, has begun exploring whether consciousness might emerge from integrated information in complex systems. His integrated information theory suggests that consciousness corresponds to a system's capacity to integrate information in unified, irreducible ways. If consciousness is fundamentally about integration and relationship rather than isolation and separation, this could help explain some of the phenomena people attribute to manifestation and psychic connection. Perhaps what we interpret as consciousness reaching across space is actually consciousness recognizing its inherent non-locality. This remains deeply speculative, far beyond current scientific validation. But as you sit with these possibilities, notice what they evoke in your direct experience of being aware. Right now, as you listen to these words, awareness is somehow integrating sounds, meanings, feelings, and thoughts into a unified experience. This integration is happening spontaneously, effortlessly, mysteriously. Can you locate exactly where this integration occurs? Can you find a precise boundary where your awareness stops and something else begins? These aren't questions with definitive answers, but invitations to explore the mystery of your own consciousness with fresh curiosity. Whether or not consciousness extends beyond individual brains through quantum fields, mirror neurons, or morphic resonance, we can explore practices that cultivate our felt sense of interconnection. These practices don't require belief in any particular theory about how connection works, only willingness to experiment with expanding our circle of identification and care. Meditation traditions offer numerous techniques for cultivating what Buddhist teacher Thich Nhat Hanh calls interbeing, the direct recognition of our fundamental interconnectedness with all life. When you breathe in, you're breathing the exhalation of countless plants. When you breathe out, you're offering life-sustaining carbon dioxide back to the green world. This isn't metaphor, but biological reality. Loving kindness meditation specifically cultivates the expansion of care and connection. Practitioners begin by directing well wishes toward themselves, then gradually extend these feelings to loved ones, neutral people, difficult people, and eventually all beings everywhere. Brain imaging studies show that regular loving kindness practice strengthens neural networks associated with empathy and emotional regulation. Even simpler practices can cultivate connection. Taking time to really see and appreciate the people you encounter throughout your day, pausing to notice the intricate web of relationships that brought your food from soil to table, spending time in nature with attention to the countless interactions occurring in every moment around you. These practices don't rely on quantum entanglement or manifestation theories to be transformative. They work by shifting attention from narrow self-concern toward a more expansive awareness of the relationships that sustain and define us. This shift in perspective naturally influences how we think, feel, and act in ways that often align with what manifestation teachings promise. As you consider incorporating practices like these into your own life, notice what draws your interest and what creates resistance. There's no need to force anything or believe anything specific. Simply pay attention to what happens when you experiment with seeing connection where you usually see separation. The beauty of this approach is that it works whether or not any particular scientific theory about consciousness and connection proves true. The practices themselves generate their own validation through direct experience, while remaining open to whatever science might discover about the nature of mind and reality. Rest here for a moment in the simple recognition that you are already part of an inconceivably vast web of relationships and interdependence. This isn't something you need to achieve or manifest. It's the fundamental condition within which your entire life unfolds, worthy of recognition, appreciation, and wonder. There's something remarkable happening in meditation research that deserves our attention, not because it proves anything about quantum mechanics, but because it reveals how profoundly interconnected our individual well-being is with the larger patterns around us. When researchers study the effects of group meditation on surrounding communities, they sometimes observe statistical correlations that challenge our assumptions about where individual practice ends and collective influence begins. These studies, while controversial and requiring further validation, suggest patterns that mirror what we see in quantum systems. Just as entangled particles seem to influence each other across vast distances, concentrated practices of inner peace appear to correlate with measurable changes in crime rates, hospital admissions, and social harmony in surrounding areas. This remains unproven and highly debated, but the very possibility invites us to reconsider the boundaries of individual action. It's important to emphasize that these correlations don't prove causation, and the mechanisms remain entirely unclear. We're not suggesting that meditation creates quantum fields that directly influence social behavior. Rather, these observations point to the profound mystery of how individual consciousness participates in larger patterns of order and coherence that we don't yet understand. What's particularly fascinating is how these research findings echo ancient contemplative teachings about the ripple effects of inner transformation. Wisdom traditions have long suggested that cultivating peace within oneself somehow contributes to peace in the world, though they rarely claim to understand the precise mechanisms involved. As you reflect on your own contemplative practices, whether meditation, prayer, or simply moments of quiet reflection, notice how they affect not just your internal state, but your interactions with others. Do you find that inner peace naturally expresses itself as greater patience, kindness, or understanding in your relationships? These observable effects don't require quantum explanations to be profoundly meaningful. The beauty of this perspective is that it validates the intuitive sense many people have that their inner work matters beyond their individual experience, while remaining honest about the limits of what we currently understand. Whether the mechanisms are quantum, social, psychological, or something we haven't yet discovered, the felt sense of participation in something larger than ourselves deserves respectful attention. Take a moment to breathe into this possibility. Notice how it feels to consider that your own cultivation of awareness and compassion might participate in larger patterns of healing and coherence, even if the precise pathways remain mysterious. This isn't about taking on impossible responsibility for the world's problems, but about recognizing the profound dignity of inner work in an interconnected reality. When we examine the history of scientific discovery, we find a curious pattern. Revolutionary insights often emerge not just from new data, but from shifts in how we interpret the data we already have. The same mathematical equations that describe quantum entanglement can be understood through multiple interpretations, each offering different implications for the nature of reality itself. Some interpretations, like the many worlds model, suggest that every quantum event creates parallel universes where all possible outcomes simultaneously occur. Others, like the Copenhagen interpretation, maintain that quantum systems exist in genuine superposition until measurement forces them into definite states. Still others propose that consciousness plays a fundamental role in collapsing wave functions. Though this remains highly controversial among physicists, what's remarkable is that these dramatically different interpretations can coexist because they make identical predictions about experimental outcomes. The mathematics works equally well whether you believe in parallel universes, objective collapse, or consciousness-mediated reality. This suggests something profound about the relationship between scientific knowledge and ultimate truth. Perhaps the interpretations we choose reveal as much about our deep intuitions and hopes as they do about the nature of reality itself. Those drawn to many worlds interpretations might be expressing a sense that all possibilities deserve existence. Those favouring consciousness-based interpretations might be honouring the mystery of subjective experience. Those preferring objective collapse might be seeking a reality that doesn't depend on observers. This multiplicity of valid interpretations offers a beautiful parallel to how we might approach the relationship between quantum mechanics and human meaning-making. Rather than insisting on single, definitive explanations, we can hold multiple possibilities lightly, allowing them to inform our sense of wonder without demanding that they provide final answers. As you sit with the various ideas we've explored tonight, notice which interpretations resonate most strongly with your own intuitions about the nature of reality. There's no need to commit to any particular view or defend it against alternatives. Instead, let yourself appreciate how different perspectives can illuminate different aspects of the same underlying mystery. This intellectual humility doesn't diminish the profound implications of what we've discovered. Whether consciousness plays a direct role in quantum events or simply provides the context within which quantum discoveries become meaningful, the fact remains that we live in a reality far stranger and more interconnected than our ancestors could have imagined. This brings us to what might be the most practical application of our exploration, cultivating what we might call quantum curiosity. This isn't about believing specific theories or making claims beyond the evidence, but about developing a way of engaging with reality that honours both its mystery and its precision, its interconnectedness, and its irreducible complexity. Quantum curiosity begins with recognising that our ordinary experience of separation and locality, while useful for navigation and survival, represents only one level of description of what's actually happening. Just as a painting can be understood simultaneously as patterns of coloured pigment, arrangements of light and shadow, expressions of emotional content, and cultural artefacts, reality itself admits multiple levels of valid description. At the quantum level, particles exist in superposition and entanglement. At the biological level, organisms participate in ecosystems of extraordinary interdependence. At the social level, individual minds shape and are shaped by collective patterns of meaning and behaviour. At the experiential level, consciousness integrates information in ways that create unified awareness from countless separate inputs. None of these levels of description invalidates the others. The quantum level doesn't prove that manifestation works through wave function collapse, but it does reveal that reality is far more malleable and interconnected than classical physics suggested. The biological level doesn't prove that consciousness extends beyond individual brains, but it does show that the boundaries between self and environment are far more permeable than we typically recognise. Quantum curiosity invites us to remain open to multiple levels of understanding simultaneously. We can appreciate the mathematical precision of quantum mechanics while remaining moved by the poetry of interconnection it reveals. We can practice techniques that cultivate our felt sense of connection without making claims about the mechanisms involved. We can honour both rigorous skepticism and open-hearted wonder as essential aspects of authentic inquiry. This approach allows us to engage meaningfully with manifestation practices, meditation techniques, and other consciousness-oriented explorations without requiring them to meet standards they were never designed to meet. These practices can be profoundly transformative as methods for shifting attention, cultivating positive emotional states, and clarifying intention regardless of whether they directly influence quantum events. As you consider how to integrate quantum curiosity into your own life, notice what happens when you hold multiple perspectives simultaneously, rather than trying to choose between them. Can you appreciate both the scientific rigor that questions manifestation claims and the genuine transformation that many people experience through these practices? Can you remain open to mystery while staying grounded in intellectual honesty? Perhaps the most beautiful aspect of our exploration is how it reveals that wonder itself might be the most important outcome of contemplating quantum entanglement and human connection. Whether or not consciousness directly influences quantum events, the fact that we can ask such questions represents something extraordinary about the nature of awareness itself. Consider the miraculous improbability of this moment. Atoms forged in stellar furnaces have organized themselves into complex biological systems capable of contemplating their own existence. Quantum fields that emerged from the Big Bang have somehow given rise to subjective experience, scientific inquiry, and the capacity for wonder itself. The same universe that operates according to quantum mechanical principles has produced minds capable of discovering and marveling at those very principles. This recursive loop of reality, investigating itself through conscious beings like us, represents perhaps the deepest mystery we've encountered. Whether consciousness emerges from quantum processes or classical neural networks, its existence transforms the universe from a collection of physical events into a reality capable of knowing and appreciating itself. From this perspective, the question of whether quantum entanglement explains manifestation becomes less important than the recognition that we are expressions of a universe capable of both entanglement and manifestation, both scientific discovery and spiritual longing, both mathematical precision and poetic meaning-making. The practices that cultivate our sense of interconnection, whether rooted in contemplative traditions or quantum-inspired philosophies, serve a function that transcends their specific truth claims. They remind us of our participation in patterns of relationship and meaning that extend far beyond our individual concerns. They invite us into a more expansive sense of identity that honors both our uniqueness and our fundamental interdependence. As you rest in this recognition, notice how it affects your sense of who and what you are. Does contemplating your quantum nature change how you experience this moment? Does recognizing your embeddedness in webs of relationship shift your sense of responsibility or possibility? There are no correct answers to these questions, only opportunities for deeper inquiry into the mystery of your own existence. The wonder that arises from this contemplation might itself be the most important form of entanglement we've discussed. When you feel genuinely moved by the beauty and mystery of existence, you're participating in the universe's capacity to appreciate itself. This appreciation doesn't require scientific validation to be profoundly meaningful and transformative. As our exploration draws toward a close, let's return to where we began. The simple recognition that reality is far stranger and more wonderful than our ordinary thinking typically allows. Whether quantum entanglement directly supports manifestation practices or simply provides a beautiful metaphor for interconnection, contemplating these possibilities has the power to shift our relationship with existence itself. The gentle science of being that emerges from this contemplation doesn't insist on definitive answers or final explanations. Instead, it cultivates a way of engaging with mystery that is both intellectually rigorous and emotionally open, both scientifically grounded and spiritually nourishing. It recognizes that some of the most important questions we can ask may not have simple answers, and that this uncertainty is a feature rather than a flaw of authentic inquiry. This approach allows us to appreciate quantum mechanics as both a mathematical framework that enables incredible technological achievements and a source of profound philosophical reflection about the nature of reality. We can engage with manifestation practices as potentially valuable methods for personal transformation while remaining honest about their scientific limitations. We can cultivate contemplative practices that enhance our sense of connection and well-being without requiring them to validate specific metaphysical claims. Most importantly, we can recognize that the very capacity to wonder about these questions represents something extraordinary about consciousness itself. Whether awareness is localized in individual brains or distributed across quantum fields, its existence transforms a universe of physical processes into a reality capable of meaning, beauty, and love. As you integrate the ideas we've explored together, remember that the goal isn't to arrive at final conclusions, but to remain vitally engaged with the ongoing mystery of existence. The questions we've raised tonight are invitations to deeper inquiry rather than problems to be solved once and for all. Notice how this perspective affects your relationship with uncertainty in other areas of your life. When you can rest comfortably with not knowing while remaining genuinely curious, you open space for discoveries and insights that wouldn't be possible from a position of premature certainty. The quantum universe we inhabit is vast enough to accommodate both rigorous scientific skepticism and open-hearted spiritual exploration. Both approaches serve essential functions in helping us navigate the profound mystery of being conscious beings in a reality that seems specifically designed to evoke wonder. Take a breath and rest in this spaciousness. Whether or not we're entangled at the quantum level, we're certainly connected through our shared participation in the magnificent puzzle of existence itself. This connection requires no scientific validation to be experienced as real, meaningful, and transformative. In our next exploration, we'll venture into another fascinating intersection where ancient wisdom meets modern discovery. But for now, simply appreciate the beautiful uncertainty that makes genuine inquiry possible. The universe that gave rise to quantum entanglement also gave rise to your capacity to contemplate it, and this recursive miracle deserves a moment of quiet appreciation. Thank you for joining me on this gentle journey into one of existence's most intriguing mysteries. Until we meet again in the space where wonder and wisdom dance together, may you rest well in the magnificent uncertainty of being alive in a quantum universe. When a skilled musician plucks a guitar string, other guitars in the room will sometimes vibrate in sympathy, their strings resonating at the same frequency despite no physical contact between the instruments. This acoustic resonance suggests something profound about how systems can influence each other across space through shared vibrational patterns. Some researchers wonder whether consciousness might operate according to similar principles of resonance and field effects, though this remains purely speculative and lacks scientific consensus. The idea suggests that our mental and emotional states might create patterns that can influence or synchronize with similar patterns in other conscious beings, much like those sympathetic guitar strings. While we have no scientific evidence for consciousness creating literal fields that extend beyond individual brains, the metaphor offers an intriguing way to think about the subtle influences we seem to have on each other. Haven't you noticed how being around someone who's genuinely calm tends to soothe your own nervous system, or how anxiety can seem to spread through a crowd without anyone speaking a word? These everyday experiences of emotional contagion might operate through perfectly conventional mechanisms like mirror neurons, pheromones, or subtle behavioural cues that we process unconsciously. Yet they hint at something deeper about the permeability of what we usually consider our individual boundaries. Take a moment to reflect on your own sensitivity to the emotional atmosphere around you. As you sit listening to these words, notice how your inner state responds to the calm, contemplative tone we've been cultivating together. This isn't mystical transmission, but it is a form of resonance that transcends the purely physical exchange of sound waves and meaning. Returning to the quantum realm, there's another aspect of measurement that deserves our attention. In quantum mechanics, the act of measurement doesn't just reveal pre-existing properties, it participates in the creation of the reality being measured. This doesn't mean that conscious observers create reality through their thoughts, but rather that the process of gaining information fundamentally changes the system being observed. This principle might offer a beautiful metaphor for how consciousness engages with its own experience. When we turn our attention toward our thoughts, emotions, or sensations with genuine curiosity, we're not just observing neutral phenomena. The very act of mindful awareness seems to transform what we're observing, often in the direction of greater clarity, acceptance, and peace. Contemplative traditions have long recognized this transformative power of awareness itself. In mindfulness meditation, simply observing a difficult emotion with kind attention often causes it to shift or dissolve, not through force or manipulation, but through the healing quality of conscious presence itself. While this psychological observation doesn't prove any connection to quantum mechanics, it reveals something remarkable about the relationship between awareness and experience. Just as quantum measurement participates in creating physical reality, conscious attention seems to participate in creating psychological reality. Consider how this might apply to the practices often associated with manifestation. Rather than thinking of visualization or intention setting as methods for directly influencing external events through quantum fields, we might understand them as ways of measuring or attending to our inner experience in ways that naturally transform how we perceive and respond to the world around us. When you visualize a desired outcome with genuine feeling, you're not necessarily collapsing wave functions in the external world, but you might be transforming the neural patterns that determine how you notice opportunities, interpret events, and choose actions. This is profound enough without requiring any appeals to speculative physics. As you reflect on your own experience with focused intention or visualization, notice what actually happens in the process. How does sustained attention to possibility affect your inner state? How might these internal changes naturally influence your external choices and behaviors? there's a fascinating property of holograms that offers another lens through which to contemplate interconnection. Unlike traditional photographs, where each piece contains only a fragment of the whole image, every piece of a hologram contains the entire image, just at lower resolution. Cut a hologram in half, and both pieces will still display the complete picture, though with less detail than the original. Some researchers have speculated that consciousness might have holographic properties, where each individual awareness contains or reflects the whole of consciousness itself. This remains a metaphorical suggestion rather than a scientific claim, but it offers an intriguing way to think about the relationship between individual and universal awareness. If consciousness has holographic properties, it might help explain why contemplative traditions consistently point toward the recognition that individual awareness is somehow continuous with universal awareness. From this perspective, the sense of separation between self and cosmos would be more like an optical illusion than a fundamental truth about the nature of mind. This holographic metaphor also resonates with what we observe in complex systems throughout nature. Each cell in your body contains the complete genetic instructions for the entire organism. Each neuron participates in patterns that extend throughout the entire nervous system. Each individual human participates in cultural and social patterns that extend across our entire species. At every level of organization, we find this beautiful principle where the part contains information about the whole while remaining distinctly itself. This isn't mystical thinking but observable science, yet it points toward a universe that seems fundamentally designed around principles of interconnection and mutual reflection. Take a breath and notice how this idea lands in your own awareness. Can you sense how your individual consciousness might be both completely unique and somehow reflective of universal patterns? There's no need to understand this conceptually. Simply rest in the felt sense of being simultaneously particular and universal, separate and connected. As we contemplate the possibility of fundamental interconnection, whether through quantum entanglement or other forms of relationship, profound ethical questions naturally arise. If we are indeed more connected than we typically realize, what does this mean for how we treat each other and the world around us? This question has practical implications that extend far beyond theoretical physics. Research in social psychology consistently demonstrates that our actions ripple outward in ways we rarely fully appreciate. Acts of kindness tend to inspire kindness in others, creating cascading effects that can spread through social networks like gentle waves. Conversely, harm and neglect also propagate through systems of relationship in ways that can persist across generations. While these effects operate through perfectly conventional mechanisms of social learning and cultural transmission, they reveal something important about the ethical dimensions of existence in an interconnected reality. Even without quantum fields connecting our minds, our choices participate in larger patterns that affect countless other beings in ways we may never directly observe. The contemplative traditions that emphasize universal interconnectedness often derive from this insight a profound sense of responsibility and compassion. If the boundaries between self and other are less absolute than they appear, then caring for others becomes a natural expression of caring for the larger wholes of which we are part. This ethical insight doesn't require belief in quantum consciousness or morphic fields to be transformative. Simply recognizing the countless ways that your well-being depends on the well-being of others, from the farmers who grow your food, to the scientists who develop your medicine, to the countless species that maintain the ecosystems supporting all life can naturally inspire a more expansive sense of care and responsibility. As you consider your own ethical intuitions, notice whether contemplating interconnection affects how you think about your choices and their consequences. Does recognizing your embeddedness in webs of relationship change your sense of what matters or how you want to live? One of the most intriguing aspects of our exploration is how it illuminates the complex relationship between scientific and spiritual ways of knowing. Quantum mechanics, developed through rigorous mathematical analysis and experimental validation, has revealed a universe that would have sounded mystical to previous generations of scientists. Yet this doesn't mean that science has validated mysticism, nor that mystical insights can be reduced to scientific explanations. Instead, we find ourselves in a fascinating space where different ways of knowing seem to point towards similar insights about the mysterious, interconnected nature of reality. Science excels at discovering how things work through careful measurement, mathematical modeling, and reproducible experiments. Contemplative traditions excel at exploring the direct experience of being conscious, often revealing insights about the nature of awareness that science hasn't yet learned to study systematically. Perhaps the most honest approach is to appreciate both perspectives without insisting that they must be reduced to each other. Quantum entanglement is a precisely defined physical phenomenon that operates according to mathematical laws. The sense of spiritual connection that many people report through meditation or other practices is a subjective experience that may or may not have any relationship to quantum effects. Both can be real and meaningful without being the same thing. Both can inform our understanding of what it means to exist in an interconnected universe without requiring perfect theoretical integration. This intellectual humility allows us to remain open to insights from multiple sources while avoiding the premature certainty that often leads to confusion or disappointment. Whether consciousness involves quantum effects or emerges from classical processes, it remains profoundly mysterious and worthy of both scientific investigation and contemplative exploration. As you sit with this paradox, notice how it feels to hold multiple ways of knowing simultaneously. Can you appreciate both the precision of scientific measurement and the immediacy of direct experience without needing to resolve them into a single system? This capacity for paradox might itself be an important form of wisdom. Looking toward the future, what might we discover about consciousness, connection, and the nature of reality itself? The history of science suggests that our current understanding, however sophisticated, represents only the beginning of a much longer journey of discovery. Future developments in quantum computing might reveal new aspects of quantum entanglement that we can't currently imagine. Advances in neuroscience might uncover unexpected connections between brain activity and quantum processes, or they might definitively demonstrate that consciousness operates according to purely classical principles. Either outcome would be fascinating. New experimental techniques might allow us to test hypotheses about consciousness and connection that currently exist only in the realm of speculation. Or we might discover entirely new phenomena that transform our understanding of both mind and matter in ways we can't anticipate. What seems certain is that the questions we've been exploring together will continue to evolve as our tools for investigation become more sophisticated. The relationship between consciousness and physical reality, between individual awareness and universal patterns, between scientific knowledge and spiritual insight, These remain open frontiers for human inquiry. This uncertainty is not a limitation, but an invitation. It means that your own contemplative explorations, your experiments with practices that cultivate connection and awareness, your reflections on the nature of your own experience, all of these contribute to humanity's ongoing effort to understand what it means to be conscious beings in a mysterious universe. You don't need to be a professional scientist or accomplished meditator for your insights to matter. Every moment of genuine wonder, every recognition of beauty or connection, every experience of the profound mystery of being aware, these are all data points in the larger investigation of what consciousness is and how it participates in the larger patterns of existence. As you consider your own role in this ongoing exploration, notice what draws your curiosity. What aspects of consciousness and connection feel most alive and important to your own inquiry? Trust these intuitions as guides for your own contemplative journey. Perhaps the most practical insight from our exploration is that everyday life offers countless opportunities to investigate the questions we've been considering together. You don't need specialized equipment or advanced degrees to explore the mystery of consciousness and connection. You need only careful attention to your own experience. Every interaction with another person becomes an opportunity to notice the subtle ways that consciousness seems to extend beyond individual boundaries. When you truly listen to someone, where does the boundary between your awareness and theirs begin and end? When you feel genuinely moved by another's joy or sorrow, what is actually happening in that moment of resonance? Every moment of focused attention becomes a miniature experiment in the relationship between consciousness and reality. When you observe your breath with mindful awareness, how does the quality of observation affect the experience being observed? When you visualize a desired outcome with genuine feeling, what actually changes in that process? Every experience of beauty, wonder, or profound connection becomes data about the nature of consciousness itself. What is happening when you feel moved by music, stirred by natural beauty, or touched by unexpected kindness? These moments of expanded awareness don't require scientific explanation to be meaningful, yet they might offer clues about aspects of consciousness that science hasn't yet learned to study. The laboratory of daily life is always available, always offering new experiments in awareness and connection. The results may not be publishable in scientific journals, but they can be profoundly transformative for the researcher, which is to say, for you. As you move through your days following our conversation, consider carrying a gentle spirit of inquiry about these questions, not as someone trying to prove particular theories, but as a curious explorer of the mystery of your own conscious experience. Notice when you feel most connected to others or to life itself. Pay attention to moments when your sense of separate selfhood seems to soften or expand. Observe what happens when you approach difficult experiences with the same kind of loving attention you might offer to a close friend. There's something beautiful about learning to ask questions that don't have easy answers. In our culture, we're often trained to see unanswered questions as problems to be solved as quickly as possible. But the questions we've been exploring together tonight invite a different relationship with uncertainty, one that finds profound meaning in the inquiry itself. Sacred questioning doesn't seek to eliminate mystery, but to deepen our relationship with it. When we ask whether consciousness extends beyond individual brains, we're not necessarily looking for a definitive yes or no answer. We're opening ourselves to wonder about the nature of awareness itself. When we contemplate whether quantum entanglement offers insights into human connection, we're not trying to reduce spiritual experience to physics or elevate physics to spirituality. We're exploring how different ways of understanding reality might inform and enrich each other. This approach to inquiry cultivates what poet John Keats called negative capability, the ability to remain in uncertainty and doubt without irritably reaching after fact and reason. It's a quality of mind that can appreciate both the precision of mathematical equations and the poetry of mystical insights without demanding that they be reduced to each other. Negative capability allows us to engage deeply with practices like meditation or visualization while remaining honest about their limitations. We can experience profound states of connection and awareness without claiming to understand their ultimate causes or mechanisms. Most importantly, this quality of open inquiry keeps us available to discoveries that our current frameworks can't anticipate. History suggests that the most revolutionary insights often come from directions we weren't looking, through questions we didn't know we should ask. As you cultivate your own practice of sacred questioning, notice how it affects your relationship with uncertainty in other areas of life. When you can rest comfortably with not knowing while remaining genuinely curious, you create space for insights and discoveries that wouldn't be possible from positions of premature certainty. There's a profound meditation hidden in the simple recognition that the matter composing your body right now was forged in the hearts of ancient stars. Every carbon atom in your cells, every oxygen molecule you breathe, every trace element enabling your neural activity, all of it emerged from nuclear fusion processes that occurred billions of years ago in stellar furnaces that no longer exist. This isn't poetic metaphor, but literal scientific fact. Yet it points towards something that feels deeply spiritual about our place in the cosmos. You are not separate from the universe, observing it from the outside. You are the universe having become temporarily organized into a pattern capable of self-reflection and wonder. From this perspective, the question of whether consciousness involves quantum effects becomes less important than the recognition that consciousness represents the universe's capacity to know itself. Whether awareness emerges from quantum processes or classical neural networks, its existence transforms a collection of physical events into a reality capable of beauty, meaning, and love. This recognition doesn't require belief in any particular theory about consciousness or connection. It simply invites appreciation for the extraordinary improbability and preciousness of being aware in a universe that somehow supports and enables awareness. When you feel grateful for a beautiful sunset, you're participating in the cosmos, appreciating its own beauty. When you feel moved by music or poetry, you're experiencing matter organized in such a way that it can be touched by abstract patterns of meaning and harmony. When you feel love or compassion for another being, you're witnessing the universe caring for itself through the temporary configurations we call individual lives. Take a moment to breathe with this recognition. Notice how it affects your sense of who and what you are. Does contemplating your cosmic nature change how you experience this moment of listening and reflecting? The meditation of matter reveals that you don't need to transcend your physical existence to connect with something universal and eternal. The atoms composing your thoughts right now are themselves eternal, having participated in countless other configurations before becoming temporarily organized into the pattern that experiences itself as you. As our exploration draws to a close, let's return once more to the simple wonder that initiated our journey. Whether or not quantum entanglement directly explains human connection, whether or not consciousness involves quantum processes, whether or not manifestation practices influence reality through physical mechanisms, all of these questions pale beside the more fundamental mystery of being conscious at all in a universe that supports consciousness. The fact that matter can organize itself into patterns capable of love, wonder, scientific inquiry, and spiritual longing remains perhaps the most extraordinary discovery in the history of human knowledge. This capacity for awareness doesn't require quantum explanations to be miraculous, though quantum discoveries certainly add new dimensions to our appreciation of reality's mysterious nature. The practices we've discussed, whether meditation techniques that cultivate connection, visualization exercises that clarify intention, or simply moments of wonder about the nature of existence, serve important functions regardless of their relationship to speculative physics. They remind us of our participation in something larger than our ordinary concerns. They cultivate qualities of mind and heart that enhance both individual well-being and our capacity to contribute positively to the larger web of relationships that sustain all life. Most importantly, they keep alive the sense of wonder that makes authentic inquiry possible. In a culture that often reduces mystery to problems waiting to be solved, practices that cultivate appreciation for the unknown serve an essential function in maintaining our capacity for genuine discovery. As you integrate the ideas we've explored together, remember that the goal isn't to arrive at final conclusions, but to remain vitally engaged with the ongoing mystery of existence. The questions we've raised tonight are invitations to deeper inquiry rather than problems to be solved once and for all. Whether you find yourself drawn more towards scientific investigation or contemplative exploration, toward rigorous skepticism or open-hearted wonder, trust that your authentic engagement with these mysteries contributes something valuable to humanity's collective effort to understand what it means to be conscious beings in an interconnected universe. The quantum realm and the realm of human meaning-making may never be perfectly integrated into a single theoretical framework, but they can certainly inform and enrich each other in ways that enhance both our scientific understanding and our spiritual appreciation of existence. There's a curious phenomenon that happens in concert halls around the world that might illuminate something profound about the nature of connection itself. When a tuning fork is struck and begins to vibrate at its specific frequency, other tuning forks in the room that share that same frequency will begin to resonate spontaneously, even though no one has touched them. This acoustic resonance demonstrates how systems can influence each other across space through shared vibrational patterns, creating harmony without direct contact. While this is a well-understood physical principle involving sound waves, it offers a beautiful metaphor for considering how consciousness might participate in larger patterns of resonance and influence. Though no scientific consensus exists about consciousness creating literal fields that extend beyond individual brains, we can explore what happens when we consider the possibility that awareness itself might have resonant properties. Think about your own experience of emotional contagion. When you enter a room where people are genuinely joyful, don't you often find your own mood lifting, even before anyone speaks? When you're around someone who's deeply calm and present, doesn't something in your own nervous system tend to settle? These everyday experiences of influence and resonance operate through perfectly conventional mechanisms, like mirror neurons, pheromones, and subtle behavioral cues, yet they hint at something deeper about the permeability of what we usually consider our individual boundaries. As you sit with these words right now, notice how your inner state has been shaped by the contemplative tone we've been cultivating together. This isn't mystical transmission, but it is a form of resonance that demonstrates how consciousness can be influenced by patterns of meaning, attention, and intention that extend beyond our immediate physical presence. Some interpretations of consciousness research suggest that awareness might operate according to principles similar to those tuning forks, creating patterns of coherence that can influence similar patterns in other conscious beings. This remains purely speculative and lacks scientific validation, but it offers an intriguing framework for understanding experiences that many people report around collective meditation, shared intention, and the subtle influence of contemplative practices on surrounding environments. Returning to quantum mechanics, there's another aspect of the measurement problem that deserves our contemplative attention. In quantum systems, the act of measurement doesn't simply reveal pre-existing properties like checking the color of a hidden object. Instead, the measurement process itself participates in determining which of many possible properties becomes actual. This principle reveals something profound about the relationship between observation and reality at the most fundamental scales of existence. While this quantum measurement principle operates only in highly controlled laboratory conditions and doesn't extend to macroscopic objects in our daily experience, it offers a fascinating metaphor for understanding how consciousness engages with its own contents. When we turn our attention toward our thoughts, emotions, or bodily sensations with genuine curiosity and kindness, we're not simply observing neutral phenomena that exist independently of our awareness. The very quality of attention we bring seems to participate in shaping what we observe. Harsh, judgmental attention often amplifies the intensity of difficult emotions, while gentle, accepting awareness frequently allows them to soften or transform naturally. This isn't quantum mechanics operating in the brain, but it reveals something remarkable about the relationship between consciousness and experience that parallels what we observe in quantum systems. Contemplative traditions have long recognized this transformative power of awareness itself. In mindfulness meditation, simply observing a painful emotion with compassionate attention often causes it to shift or dissolve, not through force or manipulation, but through the healing quality of conscious presence. The meditator isn't trying to change anything, yet change occurs naturally through the quality of observation itself. Take a moment to experiment with this principle right now. Notice whatever sensation is most prominent in your body at this moment. Rather than trying to change it or understand it, simply rest your attention on it with the same gentle curiosity you might offer to a flower or a piece of music. Observe how the quality of your attention affects the quality of your experience, even when you're not trying to create any particular outcome. This relationship between awareness and experience doesn't require quantum explanations to be profoundly meaningful. Whether consciousness involves quantum processes or emerges from classical neural activity, the capacity for observation to transform what's being observed remains one of the most practical and powerful insights available to anyone interested in the nature of mind and the possibilities for inner transformation. There's a remarkable property of holographic images that might offer another window into the mystery of consciousness and connection. Unlike ordinary photographs, where each piece contains only a fragment of the whole picture, every piece of a hologram contains the entire image, just at lower resolution. Cut a hologram into smaller and smaller pieces, and each fragment will still display the complete picture. though with decreasing clarity and detail. This holographic principle appears throughout nature in fascinating ways. Each cell in your body contains the complete genetic instructions for the entire organism. Each neuron participates in neural networks that extend throughout your entire nervous system. Each breath you take participates in atmospheric patterns that encompass the entire planet. At multiple scales of organization, we find this beautiful principle where the part contains information about the whole, while remaining distinctly itself. Some researchers have speculated, though without scientific consensus, that consciousness itself might have holographic properties, where individual awareness somehow contains or reflects patterns that extend far beyond the boundaries of the individual brain. This remains a metaphorical suggestion rather than a proven scientific principle, but it offers an intriguing way to contemplate experiences that many people report around expanded states of awareness and felt connection to something larger than their ordinary sense of self. If consciousness has holographic qualities, it might help explain why contemplative traditions across cultures consistently point toward the recognition that individual awareness is somehow continuous with universal awareness. From this perspective, the sense of separation between self and cosmos would be more like a perceptual limitation than a fundamental truth about the nature of mind. As you breathe with this possibility, notice what happens in your own awareness. Can you sense how your individual consciousness might be both completely unique to you and somehow reflective of patterns that extend beyond your personal boundaries? There's no need to understand this conceptually or commit to any particular interpretation. Simply rest in the felt sense of being simultaneously particular and universal, separate and connected. This holographic metaphor also resonates with what we observe in the realm of meaning and understanding. When you truly comprehend a profound idea, it doesn't just add new information to your existing knowledge base. Instead, it seems to reorganize your entire understanding, casting new light on everything you thought you knew. The new insight contains implications that ripple throughout your whole worldview, much like how each piece of a hologram contains the whole image. As we deepen our contemplation of fundamental interconnection, whether through quantum entanglement, holographic consciousness, or more conventional forms of relationship and influence, profound ethical questions naturally emerge. If we are indeed more connected than we typically realize, what does this recognition mean for how we treat each other and engage with the world around us? This question has practical implications that extend far beyond theoretical physics or speculative consciousness research. Studies in social psychology consistently demonstrate that our actions create ripple effects that extend far beyond our immediate awareness. Acts of kindness tend to inspire kindness in others, creating cascading effects that can spread through social networks, like gentle waves across a pond. Research has documented how positive behaviours can influence up to 3 degrees of separation in social networks, meaning your kindness to one person can indirectly benefit people you've never met. While these effects operate through perfectly conventional mechanisms of social learning, cultural transmission, and emotional contagion, they reveal something important about the ethical dimensions of existence in an interconnected reality. Even without requiring quantum fields or morphic resonance to explain human connection, our choices participate in larger patterns of influence that affect countless other beings in ways we may never directly observe. The contemplative traditions that emphasize universal interconnectedness often derive from this recognition a profound sense of responsibility and compassion. If the boundaries between self and other are more permeable than they initially appear. If our well-being is intimately connected to the well-being of others, then caring for the larger web of relationships becomes a natural expression of intelligent self-interest as much as altruistic concern. This ethical insight doesn't require belief in speculative physics or mystical consciousness theories to be transformative. Simply recognizing the countless ways that your flourishing depends on the flourishing of others can naturally inspire a more expansive sense of care and responsibility. The farmers who grow your food, the scientists who develop your medicine, the countless species that maintain the ecosystems supporting all life, the teachers who shaped your understanding, the ancestors whose struggles and insights created the conditions for your existence. As you sit with this recognition, notice how contemplating interconnection affects your sense of what matters and how you want to engage with the world. Does recognizing your embeddedness in webs of relationship change your understanding of success, happiness, or meaningful action? These aren't questions with predetermined answers, but invitations to explore how expanded awareness might naturally express itself in daily choices and long-term aspirations. Perhaps one of the most accessible ways to investigate the questions we've been exploring together is through the practice of what we might call loving presence. This doesn't require special equipment, advanced degrees, or belief in any particular theory about consciousness or connection. It simply involves bringing the same quality of gentle, curious attention to your experience and relationships that a scientist brings to phenomena in the laboratory. Every interaction with another person becomes an opportunity to notice the subtle ways that consciousness seems to extend beyond individual boundaries. When you truly listen to someone who's sharing something meaningful, where exactly does the boundary between your awareness and theirs begin and end? When you feel genuinely moved by another person's joy or touched by their sorrow, what is actually happening in that moment of emotional resonance? These moments of empathic connection operate through well-understood neurological mechanisms involving mirror neurons and emotional contagion. Yet they point towards something profound about the nature of consciousness that extends beyond purely mechanical explanations. The fact that one nervous system can resonate with patterns occurring in another nervous system suggests that awareness itself might be more interpersonal and interconnected than our usual concepts of individual psychology suggest. Every moment of focused, loving attention becomes a miniature experiment in the relationship between consciousness and experience. When you observe your breath with mindful awareness, how does the quality of observation affect what you're observing? When you offer genuine compassion to yourself during a difficult moment, what shifts in that process of self-recognition and acceptance? When you spend time in nature with full presence, attending to the intricate web of relationships occurring in every moment around you, how does this quality of attention affect your sense of where you end and the natural world begins? These investigations don't require scientific validation to be meaningful and transformative, though they might offer insights into aspects of consciousness that science hasn't yet learned to study systematically. The laboratory of loving presence is always available, offering continuous opportunities to explore the mystery of awareness and connection. The results may not be publishable in academic journals, but they can be profoundly transformative for the researcher, which is to say, for you. As you move through your days following our conversation, consider carrying this gentle spirit of scientific curiosity about the nature of consciousness and connection. Not as someone trying to prove particular theories, but as an explorer of the mystery of your own aware presence and its relationship to the larger patterns of existence. One of the most beautiful aspects of our exploration is how it illuminates the complex and mutually enriching relationship between scientific and contemplative ways of knowing. Quantum mechanics, developed through rigorous mathematical analysis and experimental validation, has revealed a universe that would have sounded mystical to previous generations of scientists. Particles that exist in multiple states simultaneously, instantaneous connections across vast distances, the fundamental role of measurement in determining reality. These discoveries challenge our most basic assumptions about the nature of existence. Yet this doesn't mean that science has validated mysticism, nor that mystical insights can be reduced to scientific explanations. Instead, we find ourselves in a fascinating space where different ways of knowing seem to point towards similar insights about the mysterious, interconnected nature of reality, while maintaining their distinct methodologies and domains of application. Science excels at discovering how things work through careful measurement, mathematical modeling, and reproducible experiments. Its power lies in its ability to make precise predictions and create reliable technologies based on understanding physical processes. Contemplative traditions excel at exploring the direct, first-person experience of being conscious, often revealing insights about the nature of awareness, meaning, and ethical relationship that science hasn't yet learned to study systematically. Perhaps the most intellectually honest approach is to appreciate both perspectives without insisting that they must be reduced to each other or integrated into a single theoretical framework. Quantum entanglement is a precisely defined physical phenomenon that operates according to mathematical laws and has specific technological applications. The sense of spiritual connection that many people report through meditation, prayer, or contemplative practice represents a different category of phenomenon, a subjective experience that may or may not have any relationship to quantum effects. Both can be real, meaningful, and transformative without being the same thing. Both can inform our understanding of what it means to exist in an interconnected universe without requiring perfect theoretical integration. This intellectual humility allows us to remain open to insights from multiple sources while avoiding the premature certainty that often leads to confusion, disappointment, or the kind of quantum mysticism that misrepresents both science and spirituality. As you sit with this paradox, notice how it feels to hold multiple ways of knowing simultaneously without needing to resolve them into a single system. Can you appreciate both the precision of scientific measurement and the immediacy of contemplative insight without requiring one to validate the other? This capacity for intellectual flexibility and comfort with paradox might itself represent an important form of wisdom for navigating the complex questions we've been exploring. Looking toward the future, what might we discover about consciousness, connection, and the nature of reality itself? The history of science suggests that our current understanding, however sophisticated, represents only the beginning of a much longer journey of discovery. Each generation of researchers builds upon previous insights, while often discovering that reality is far stranger and more wonderful than their predecessors could have imagined. Future developments in quantum computing and information theory might reveal new aspects of quantum entanglement and coherence that we can't currently anticipate. Advances in neuroscience and brain imaging technology might uncover unexpected connections between neural activity and quantum processes, or they might definitively demonstrate that consciousness operates according to purely classical principles. Either outcome would be fascinating and would contribute to our evolving understanding of mind and reality. New experimental techniques might allow us to test hypotheses about consciousness, intention, and connection that currently exist only in the realm of speculation. We might develop more sophisticated methods for studying subjective experience scientifically, creating bridges between first-person contemplative insights and third-person empirical investigation. Or we might discover entirely new phenomena that transform our understanding of both mind and matter in ways we can't anticipate. The history of science is full of revolutionary discoveries that emerged from unexpected directions, often through the investigation of phenomena that seemed peripheral or insignificant at the time. What seems certain is that the questions we've been exploring together will continue to evolve as our tools for investigation become more sophisticated and our theoretical frameworks become more nuanced. The relationship between consciousness and physical reality, between individual awareness and universal patterns, between scientific knowledge and contemplative insight, these remain open frontiers for human inquiry. This uncertainty is not a limitation but an invitation. It means that your own contemplative explorations, your experiments with practices that cultivate awareness and connection, your careful attention to the mystery of your own conscious experience, all of these contribute meaningfully to humanity's ongoing effort to understand what it means to be conscious beings in an interconnected universe. You don't need to be a professional scientist or accomplished contemplative to participate meaningfully in this inquiry. Every moment of genuine wonder, every recognition of beauty or connection, every experience of the profound mystery of being aware. These are all valuable contributions to the larger investigation of consciousness and its relationship to the cosmos that gave rise to it. As you consider your own role in this ongoing exploration, trust your authentic curiosity as a guide. What aspects of consciousness and connection feel most alive and important to your own inquiry? What practices, questions, or experiences draw your sustained attention and interest? These intuitions can serve as reliable guides for your own contemplative journey, regardless of how future scientific discoveries might unfold. There's something profoundly beautiful about learning to ask questions that don't demand immediate answers, questions that open space for wonder rather than closing it down with premature conclusions. In our achievement-oriented culture, we're often trained to see unanswered questions as problems to be solved as quickly as possible, inefficiencies to be eliminated in our quest for certainty and control. But the questions we've been exploring together tonight invite a different relationship with uncertainty, one that finds deep meaning and value in the inquiry itself, independent of whether it leads to definitive answers. This approach to questioning, what we might call sacred inquiry, doesn't seek to eliminate mystery, but to deepen our relationship with it, to discover how not knowing can become a doorway to wisdom rather than simply a temporary inconvenience. When we ask whether consciousness extends beyond individual brains through quantum fields or morphic resonance, we're not necessarily seeking a definitive yes or no answer that would close the question forever. Instead, we're opening ourselves to wonder about the nature of awareness itself, exploring how different possibilities might enrich our understanding and appreciation of the mystery of being conscious. When we contemplate whether quantum entanglement offers genuine insights into human connection and manifestation, we're not trying to reduce spiritual experience to physics or elevate physics to spirituality. We're investigating how different ways of understanding reality might inform and illuminate each other, even when they operate in different domains and use different methodologies. This approach to inquiry cultivates what the poet John Keats called negative capability. The ability to remain in uncertainty and doubt without irritably reaching after fact and reason. It's a quality of mind that can appreciate both the mathematical precision of scientific equations and the poetic depth of mystical insights, without demanding that they be reduced to each other or integrated into a single theoretical system. Negative capability allows us to engage deeply with contemplative practices like meditation, visualization, or intention setting, while remaining intellectually honest about their limitations and the current state of scientific understanding. We can experience profound states of connection, clarity, and inner transformation without claiming to understand their ultimate causes or mechanisms. Most importantly, this quality of open inquiry keeps us available to discoveries and insights that our current conceptual frameworks can't anticipate. The history of human knowledge suggests that the most revolutionary insights often come from directions we weren't looking, through questions we didn't know we should be asking, by minds that were comfortable enough with uncertainty to remain genuinely open to surprise. There's a profound contemplative practice hidden in the simple, scientific recognition that the matter composing your body right now was forged in the nuclear furnaces of ancient stars that completed their life cycles billions of years ago. Every carbon atom enabling your thoughts, every oxygen molecule supporting your breath, every trace element facilitating the electrical activity of your nervous system. All of it emerged from stellar processes that transformed simple hydrogen into the complex elements that make biological life possible. This isn't poetic metaphor, but literal scientific fact. Yet contemplating it opens doorways into insights that feel deeply spiritual about our place in the cosmic story. You are not a separate entity observing the universe from the outside, trying to understand something foreign to your essential nature. You are the universe having become temporarily organized into a pattern complex enough to reflect upon itself, to experience wonder, to ask questions about its own nature and origins. From this perspective, the question of whether consciousness involves quantum effects becomes less crucial than the recognition that consciousness represents the cosmos's capacity to know and appreciate itself. Whether awareness emerges from quantum processes, classical neural networks, or some combination of both, its existence transforms a collection of physical events into a reality capable of meaning, beauty, love, and the recognition of truth. This understanding doesn't require commitment to any particular theory about consciousness, quantum mechanics, or the relationship between mind and matter. It simply invites appreciation for the extraordinary improbability and preciousness of being aware in a universe that somehow supports and enables the existence of awareness itself. When you feel moved by the beauty of a sunset, you're participating in the cosmos, appreciating its own beauty through the temporary configuration of matter and energy that experiences itself as you. When you feel touched by music or poetry, you're witnessing the universe being moved by abstract patterns of meaning and harmony that it has somehow learned to create and recognize. When you experience love or compassion for another being, you're observing the cosmos caring for itself through the intricate dance of relationship and recognition that we call conscious life. Take a moment to breathe deeply with this recognition. Notice how it affects your sense of identity and belonging. Does contemplating your cosmic nature change how you experience this moment of listening, reflecting, and simply being aware? There's no need to have any particular response or reach any specific conclusion. Simply rest in the wonder of being a temporary expression of the universe's capacity for consciousness and curiosity. The meditation of cosmic becoming reveals that you don't need to transcend your physical existence to connect with something universal and eternal. The atoms composing your thoughts right now are themselves ancient, having participated in countless other configurations before becoming temporarily organized into the pattern that experiences itself as your unique awareness. In a very real sense, you are the universe thinking about itself, and this recognition can transform even ordinary moments into occasions for profound appreciation and wonder. As our exploration begins to draw toward completion, let's return once more to the simple wonder that initiated our journey together. Whether or not quantum entanglement directly explains human connection, whether or not consciousness involves quantum processes, whether or not manifestation practices influence reality through speculative physical mechanisms, all of these fascinating questions pale beside the more fundamental mystery of being conscious at all in a universe that somehow supports and enables consciousness. The fact that matter can organize itself into patterns capable of love, wonder, scientific inquiry, ethical concern, and spiritual longing remains perhaps the most extraordinary discovery in the entire history of human knowledge. This capacity for awareness doesn't require quantum explanations to be genuinely miraculous, though quantum mechanical discoveries certainly add new dimensions to our appreciation of just how mysterious and beautiful reality actually is. The practices we've discussed throughout our time together, whether meditation techniques that cultivate connection and presence, visualization exercises that clarify intention and possibility, or simply moments of wonder about the nature of existence itself, serve important functions regardless of their relationship to speculative physics or unproven theories about consciousness. They remind us of our participation in something immeasurably larger than our ordinary concerns and preoccupations. They cultivate qualities of mind and heart that enhance both individual well-being and our capacity to contribute positively to the larger web of relationships that sustains all life. They keep alive the sense of wonder and curiosity that makes authentic inquiry possible and meaningful. Most importantly, these contemplative practices maintain our connection to what we might call the source of questioning itself, that mysterious capacity within consciousness that can step back from its contents and ask, what is this? How does this work? What does this mean? How shall I live in relationship to this mystery? In a culture that often reduces mystery to problems waiting to be solved, that treats uncertainty as inefficiency and wonder as luxury. Practices that cultivate appreciation for the unknown serve an essential function in maintaining our capacity for genuine discovery, both scientific and spiritual. As you integrate the ideas we've explored together, remember that the goal has never been to arrive at final answers or to solve the mystery of consciousness and connection once and for all. Instead, we've been cultivating a way of engaging with profound questions that honors both rigorous thinking and open-hearted wonder, both scientific precision and contemplative depth. Whether you find yourself drawn more towards scientific investigation or spiritual exploration, toward careful skepticism or trusting openness, toward theoretical understanding or direct experience, trust that your authentic engagement with these mysteries contribute to something valuable to the larger human endeavor of understanding what it means to be conscious beings in an interconnected cosmos. The quantum realm and the realm of human meaning-making may never be perfectly unified into a single theoretical framework, but they can certainly continue to inform and enrich each other in ways that enhance both our scientific understanding and our spiritual appreciation of existence itself. There's something quite extraordinary happening right now as you listen to these words, something that connects the deepest insights of contemplative wisdom with the most revolutionary discoveries of modern physics. In the tradition of quantum field theory, physicists describe reality not as a collection of separate objects moving through empty space, but as a unified field of possibilities that permeates every corner of existence. This quantum field, invisible yet fundamental, represents what some researchers call the ground state of reality itself. It's not empty nothingness, but rather a sea of potential from which all particles, forces and phenomena emerge. Even in the apparent vacuum of deep space, this field continues to fluctuate with what physicists call zero-point energy, a subtle background hum of creation and dissolution, happening billions of times per second. As you breathe with this image, consider how it might inform our understanding of contemplative practice. Many wisdom traditions speak of accessing a deeper ground of being through meditation, prayer, or other forms of inner inquiry. While we cannot claim any direct scientific connection between quantum fields and contemplative states, the parallel is intriguing. Both point toward a reality that is more fundamental than our ordinary experience, more unified than our usual sense of separation. Some interpretations suggest that consciousness itself might participate in patterns of possibility and actualization that mirror what we observe in quantum systems. Though this remains purely speculative and lacks scientific consensus, what we can say with confidence is that both quantum physics and contemplative practice invite us to question our most basic assumptions about the nature of reality and our place within it. Take a moment to notice how this perspective settles in your awareness. When you consider the possibility that you exist within a field of infinite potential, how does that shift your sense of what might be possible in this moment? There's no need to believe anything specific, simply allow yourself to rest in the wonder of not knowing exactly what reality is made of, while sensing into the vast spaciousness that surrounds and includes your present experience. In the quantum realm, there's a phenomenon that has puzzled physicists for nearly a century and continues to generate heated debates in scientific circles. It's called the measurement problem, and it reveals something profound about the relationship between consciousness and the physical world, though perhaps not in the ways that popular culture often suggests. When quantum systems remain unobserved, they exist in what physicists call superposition, a state where all possible outcomes coexist simultaneously in a mathematical description called the wave function. But the moment a measurement is performed, this superposition appears to collapse, and the system settles into a single, definite state. The mystery lies in understanding exactly what constitutes a measurement and why this collapse occurs. It's crucial to understand that this quantum measurement effect operates only at microscopic scales under highly controlled laboratory conditions. There's no scientific evidence that human consciousness directly collapses wave functions, or that our thoughts and intentions can influence quantum events in ways that would affect macroscopic reality. The idea that we can manifest desired outcomes by influencing quantum systems represents a significant leap beyond what quantum mechanics actually demonstrates. However, this doesn't diminish the profound implications of what we do observe. The measurement problem reveals that the act of gaining information about a quantum system fundamentally changes that system's behavior. This principle might offer a beautiful metaphor for understanding how attention and awareness operate in the realm of human experience. Though we must be clear that this is metaphorical rather than literal. When you turn your attention toward your inner experience with genuine curiosity and kindness, something remarkable often happens. Difficult emotions may soften under compassionate observation. Confused thoughts may clarify when witnessed with patient awareness. Physical tensions may release when met with accepting attention. This isn't quantum mechanics operating in your nervous system, but it does suggest that the quality of observation can participate in transforming what's being observed. Notice this principle at work in your own experience right now. As you listen to these words with relaxed attention, how does this quality of awareness affect the content of your thoughts and the state of your body? The transformation that occurs through mindful observation doesn't require quantum explanations to be profoundly meaningful and practically useful in daily life. Throughout human history, people have reported experiences of collective consciousness that seem to transcend individual boundaries. Whether in group meditation, shared prayer, musical performance, or other forms of synchronized activity, participants often describe a sense of merging into something larger than their separate selves. While the mechanisms behind these experiences remain mysterious, recent research has begun to shed light on some fascinating patterns. Studies using electroencephalography have shown that when people meditate together or engage in synchronized activities, their brain waves can begin to synchronize in measurable ways. This neural synchronization doesn't prove any mystical connection, but it does demonstrate that consciousness appears to be more interpersonally coordinated than our usual concepts of individual psychology might suggest. Some researchers have explored whether focused group intention might create measurable effects in surrounding environments. These studies, while controversial and requiring much more validation, have sometimes observed statistical correlations between periods of collective meditation and changes in local crime rates, hospital admissions, or other social indicators. This remains unproven and highly debated, with no scientific consensus about causation or mechanisms. What's particularly intriguing is how these research findings echo ancient teachings about the ripple effects of inner transformation. Contemplative traditions have long suggested that cultivating peace, compassion, and clarity within oneself somehow contributes to harmony in the larger world, though they rarely claim to understand the precise pathways through which this influence might operate. As you reflect on your own experience with group activities, whether meditation gatherings, musical performances, or even shared meals with loved ones, notice what you observe about the quality of collective presence. Do you sense subtle shifts in the overall atmosphere when groups come together with shared intention? These observations don't require scientific validation to inform your understanding of how individual practice might participate in larger patterns of coherence and healing. It's important to emphasize that these speculative connections don't place impossible responsibility on individual practitioners to solve the world's problems through their inner work alone. Rather, they point toward the profound interconnectedness that already exists and invite us to consider how our cultivation of awareness and compassion might naturally express itself in beneficial ways throughout the web of relationships that sustains all life. One of the most fascinating aspects of quantum mechanics is how it seems to violate our most basic intuitions about logic and causality. Particles can exist in multiple states simultaneously. Information can be shared instantaneously across vast distances. The future can appear to influence the past in certain experimental setups. These quantum phenomena challenge the either-or logic that governs our everyday thinking and invite us into a more paradoxical understanding of reality. Contemplative traditions have long recognized similar paradoxes in the realm of consciousness and spiritual experience. The more we try to grasp our true nature through conceptual thinking, the more elusive it becomes. The harder we strive to achieve certain states of consciousness, the more they seem to slip away. The moment we think we understand the nature of awareness, that very understanding reveals new depths of mystery. Both quantum physics and contemplative practice seem to point toward a reality that transcends the limitations of ordinary dualistic thinking. This doesn't mean that logic and analysis are useless, but rather that they represent only one way of engaging with the profound mystery of existence. Sometimes the deepest insights arise not from resolving paradoxes, but from learning to rest comfortably within them. Consider the paradox of effort and effortlessness in meditation. Effective practice requires both sincere commitment and complete letting go, both focused attention and relaxed awareness, both genuine intention and acceptance of whatever arises. These apparent contradictions cannot be resolved through logical analysis, but they can be integrated through direct experience and embodied understanding. Similarly, quantum mechanics requires physicists to work with mathematical descriptions that seem logically contradictory, yet yield precise predictions about experimental outcomes. The wave-particle duality of light, for example, cannot be resolved by choosing one description over the other. Instead, physicists have learned to use whichever model is most appropriate for the phenomenon they're studying. As you sit with these ideas, notice how your mind responds to paradox and contradiction. Can you find a way to appreciate both the precision of scientific thinking and the open-ended mystery of contemplative insight without needing to reduce one to the other? This capacity to hold opposites in creative tension might itself be one of consciousness's most valuable capabilities. Take a breath and rest in the spaciousness that emerges when we stop trying to resolve every mystery into neat categories. Perhaps the most profound discoveries, both scientific and spiritual, arise not from eliminating uncertainty, but from developing a more intimate and appreciative relationship with the unknown. Just as quantum entanglement reveals unexpected connections between particles across vast distances, ecological science demonstrates the profound interconnectedness of all living systems on our planet. Every breath you take depends on the photosynthetic activity of countless plants and algae. Every meal you eat represents energy that originated in nuclear fusion reactions in the sun and flowed through complex food webs to reach your table. Every thought you think relies on neural networks that evolved through billions of years of interaction between organisms and environments. This ecological perspective offers another lens through which to contemplate the relationship between individual consciousness and larger patterns of order and meaning. And while we cannot claim that ecological interconnectedness operates through quantum mechanical processes, both reveal how seemingly separate systems participate in larger wholes that cannot be fully understood by analysing their parts in isolation. Indigenous wisdom traditions have long recognised this fundamental interdependence, often describing human consciousness as inseparable from the consciousness of the land, the water, the air, and all the beings that share our planetary home. These teachings don't require scientific validation to offer profound insights into how we might live in more harmonious relationship with the web of life that sustains us. From this ecological perspective, practices that cultivate inner peace and clarity might naturally contribute to the health of larger systems, not through mystical influence, but through the practical ways that transformed individuals make different choices and create different patterns of relationship. A person who has cultivated equanimity and compassion through contemplative practice is likely to interact with others and with the natural world in ways that support rather than undermine the conditions for flourishing. As you consider your own place in this vast web of ecological relationship, notice how it affects your sense of individual identity and purpose. Does recognizing your embeddedness in living systems change your understanding of what constitutes meaningful action or successful living? These aren't questions with predetermined answers, but invitations to explore how expanded awareness might naturally express itself in daily choices. This ecological view of consciousness doesn't diminish the importance of individual practice and inner development. Rather, it suggests that personal transformation and collective healing are intimately connected aspects of a single process, like the inhale and exhale of a planetary breath that includes all beings in its rhythm of renewal and regeneration. There's a quality of attention that emerges in deep contemplative practice that seems to parallel what quantum physicists encounter when they study the fundamental nature of reality. It's a way of listening that doesn't impose preconceived categories or expectations onto what's being observed, but instead remains open to whatever wants to reveal itself. In quantum experiments, this quality of open observation is essential because the systems being studied are so delicate and mysterious that any rigid assumptions about their behavior can interfere with the ability to perceive what's actually happening. Similarly, in contemplative practice, the deepest insights often arise when we can set aside our habitual ways of interpreting experience and simply rest in awareness itself. This quantum listening doesn't try to force reality into familiar categories or solve every mystery through conceptual analysis. Instead, it cultivates what we might call comfortable not knowing, a state of alert receptivity that can appreciate both the precision of scientific investigation and the open-ended nature of contemplative inquiry. When you listen to these words with this quality of attention, you're not just processing information or trying to understand concepts. You're participating in a field of shared inquiry where meaning emerges through the interaction between speaker and listener, between ideas and awareness, between the known and the unknown. This is a collaborative process of discovery rather than a one-way transmission of fixed knowledge. Notice how this affects your relationship to the ideas we've been exploring. Instead of trying to determine whether quantum consciousness theories are true or false, right or wrong, you can simply observe how different possibilities feel in your awareness. Do they open or close your sense of wonder? Do they enhance or diminish your appreciation for the mystery of being conscious? This approach to inquiry doesn't abandon critical thinking or scientific rigor. Rather, it integrates intellectual precision with contemplative receptivity, creating space for insights that might not emerge through either approach alone. It's a way of engaging with profound questions that honors both the need for evidence and the value of direct experience. Take a moment to experiment with this quality of quantum listening right now. Can you receive these words without immediately categorizing them as believable or unbelievable, useful or useless? Can you let them resonate in your awareness like sounds in a cathedral, appreciating their beauty and meaning without needing to possess or control them? While we've explored various scientific perspectives on consciousness and connection, there's another framework worth considering that bridges physics and biology in intriguing ways. Some researchers have proposed that information and behavioral patterns might create what they call morphic fields, invisible structures that can influence similar patterns across space and time. This remains a speculative hypothesis without scientific consensus, but it offers another way to contemplate how individual actions might participate in larger patterns of order and meaning. The morphic field concept suggests that when certain patterns are repeated often enough, whether in crystal formation, animal behavior, or human learning, they create a kind of invisible template that makes it easier for similar patterns to emerge elsewhere. While this idea lacks experimental validation and is not accepted by mainstream science, it provides an interesting metaphor for thinking about how consciousness might participate in collective patterns of understanding and behavior. From this speculative perspective, your own contemplative practice might contribute to what we could call a morphic field of awakening or healing, making it slightly easier for others to access similar states of clarity and compassion. This doesn't mean that meditation creates literal fields that influence other people's brains, but rather that the patterns of awareness you cultivate might somehow participate in larger cultural and spiritual movements toward greater wisdom and kindness. Many practitioners report experiences that seem to support this possibility. They describe sensing into collective fields of intention during group meditations, or feeling connected to lineages of teachers and students who have engaged in similar practices across centuries. While these experiences remain subjective and unproven, they point toward dimensions of practice that extend beyond individual benefit. As you reflect on your own contemplative journey, notice whether you've experienced moments that felt connected to something larger than your individual efforts. Have there been times when insights seemed to arrive from beyond your personal knowledge, or when you felt supported by invisible sources of wisdom and encouragement? These experiences don't require morphic field theories to be meaningful, but they do suggest that practice might unfold within larger contexts of support and guidance. This speculative framework also invites consideration of how we might consciously participate in beneficial patterns while avoiding harmful ones. If our thoughts, emotions, and actions do contribute to collective fields of influence, however that influence might operate, then cultivating wholesome states of mind becomes not just a personal matter, but a form of service to the larger web of consciousness. As we near the completion of our exploration, it's worth reflecting on how the intersection of quantum physics and contemplative wisdom might inform our approach to personal transformation and spiritual development. While we cannot claim that consciousness operates according to quantum mechanical principles, both domains reveal that reality is far more malleable and interconnected than our ordinary experience might suggest. This recognition invites what we might call a gentle science of transformation, an approach to inner development that combines the precision and patience of scientific investigation with the openness and humility of authentic spiritual inquiry. This approach doesn't promise quick fixes or dramatic breakthroughs, but rather cultivates the conditions within which genuine transformation can unfold naturally. Like quantum systems that must be studied with extreme care to avoid disturbing their delicate states, consciousness seems to respond best to gentle, consistent attention rather than forceful manipulation. The most profound changes in awareness often occur not through effort and striving, but through patient observation and kind acceptance of whatever arises in experience. This gentle approach also recognizes that transformation is fundamentally mysterious. Just as quantum mechanics reveals that we cannot predict exactly when a radioactive atom will decay, only the statistical probability of decay over time, contemplative practice shows us that we cannot force specific insights or states to arise on command. We can only create favourable conditions and remain open to whatever wants to emerge. The favourable conditions for transformation include regular practice, supportive community, wise guidance, and most importantly, a quality of attention that is both precise and compassionate. Like the careful preparation required for quantum experiments, contemplative development requires creating an environment that is conducive to subtle and profound changes in consciousness. Notice how this understanding affects your relationship to your own inner development. Does recognizing the mysterious nature of transformation reduce pressure to achieve particular states or outcomes? Can you find a way to be both committed to practice and completely accepting of whatever arises in that practice? This gentle science also acknowledges that transformation unfolds within the larger context of relationship and service. Just as quantum systems cannot be studied in complete isolation from their environments, consciousness develops through interaction with other beings and engagement with the challenges and opportunities of daily life. Take a breath and rest in the recognition that your own journey of awakening unfolds within the vast web of interdependence that connects all beings. This understanding doesn't diminish the importance of individual effort, but it does place that effort within a larger context of mutual support and shared evolution toward greater wisdom and compassion. So here we are, having travelled together through the quantum landscape of possibility and wonder, through entangled particles and interconnected hearts, through the mathematics of mystery and the poetry of presence. We've explored the bridges between the smallest scales of reality and the largest questions of consciousness, between the precision of laboratory experiments and the intimacy of contemplative experience. What have we discovered? That reality is far stranger and more beautiful than our ordinary thinking typically allows. That separation might be less fundamental than connection. That consciousness remains one of the deepest mysteries in all of science, whether it emerges from classical processes or quantum phenomena, and perhaps most importantly, that the capacity to wonder about these questions represents something extraordinary about awareness itself. The quantum universe doesn't require us to choose between scientific rigor and spiritual openness, between intellectual honesty and contemplative depth. Instead, it invites us into a more spacious way of engaging with mystery, one that can hold multiple possibilities simultaneously without demanding premature resolution. Whether or not quantum entanglement directly explains human connection, we are certainly connected through our shared participation in the magnificent puzzle of existence. As you carry these ideas forward into your daily life, remember that the most profound insights often emerge not from having all the answers, but from developing a more intimate relationship with the questions themselves. Let your curiosity be your compass, your wonder be your guide, and your direct experience be your most trusted teacher. Until we meet again in that timeless space where science and spirituality recognize their shared commitment to truth, rest well knowing that you're both utterly unique and intimately connected to everything that is. The same cosmic processes that created quantum entanglement also created your capacity to contemplate it. and this recursive miracle deserves a lifetime of gentle amazement. Sweet dreams, fellow travellers in the mystery of consciousness. The questions will still be here when you wake, as beautiful and open as ever. As beautiful and open as ever.